welcome to Aussievision. My name is Ted. If you're nice, you can call me Teddy. And this evening, I am joined by my fantastic mate over here. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's Kyriakos here.
A much more familiar face than me to all of you, I'm sure. And this evening, we are going to be talking about one of the quiet achievers of this year's Eurovision season. It is Diepte by S10 or S10 from the Netherlands. Can you tell us a little bit about her? Because while she's been very popular, I don't feel like we haven't heard a great deal about her life or her backstory during the season.
So she's an indie singer-songwriter, and she pretty much kickstarted her career in 2016 through music on SoundCloud, where she had one of
That's what you did in 2016.
Yes, exactly. And then a year later, she was actually signed to a record label called Noah's Ark, and her music themes are very interesting. She deals with her lifelong. She sings about her lifelong struggles with mental illness and depression. So many tracks talk about her experiences with bipolar and being admitted to a psychiatric hospital at a very young age. Then 2019, she released her debut studio album to critical acclaim, and then she was internally selected to represent the Netherlands at Eurovision this year.
So let's talk about it now. We're here to talk about both how we think this is going to go with the juries in Turin and also with the televote. We've been lucky enough to have the whole Aussievision team give their opinion on this, and they have come to a decision. Drum roll, please, if you will, Kira. For the jury, the Aussievision team has given the Netherlands a score of 8.93. That is a very big number, I have to say.
Yeah, that's a great score from the team. And I think it comes fourth overall in the rankings out of all the countries.
Do you agree with that score, do you think? Do you think it's going to do that well?
I do agree. The song, to me, really does scream jury. The song is dark, but yet sophisticated. And there's so many hooks in the song that give it so much stickability that I end up humming the song, like, without even realizing sometimes.
I was going to say, because I think one of the things that leaps out to me about the song is just the sheer quality of the songwriting, both in the sense that there's lots of interesting themes here and lots of interesting emotions being expressed, but also just purely in the form of the thing. This is a Dutch language song designed for like a very broad European audience. Yes. And you can tell that they've thought about that, because there's a lot of da-da-da-da-das in there. There's a lot of woo, woo. And those are things that you can latch on to even if you don't speak Dutch. I don't speak Dutch, and when I'm listening to this song, you almost feel like it's almost in a language you can understand the whole way through anyway. And I think that works really well.
And also commercially, the song has actually reached number 2 on the Dutch chart. So it really has resonated with the Dutch people already before Eurovision's even happened.
Right. I think perhaps we should move to the televote, because I think as a ballad, some people tend to think that the televote might not go for something like this as hard. So the Aussievision team has again cast their votes for how they think S10 and Diepte will go with the televote, and they've given it a score of 7.57, which again is very high. Do you think that's deserved, Kyriakos? Do you think that's realistic?
Yeah, I think that's a stronger result than I would have expected. When it comes to the televote with this song, like, it's a really good song, but it's just the question mark on how the public are going to maybe take the song. And the only thing, I mean, being overly critical here, but the only thing I can see is maybe the use of the Dutch language. So we actually haven't seen the Dutch language from the Netherlands reach a grand final since 1998. And that was obviously before we had semi-finals, when Edisilla finished 4th. And yeah, I think that's going to be a factor there, whether there's a connection with the song and the public. What do you think?
I completely disagree. I think it's going to be fine. I think you've heard me say this a few times. The public does not hate ballads, especially if they're good ballads. And my reasoning for here is both what I've already said about the use of the language. It's in Dutch, but it's in a Dutch that you can almost understand in a weird sort of way. But also the fact that this is just what Zoomer music sounds like. Like, I am, just about in that age range, maybe a little bit older, but we don't talk about that. But I'm a Zoomer at heart. And there's really an emphasis on like the vibe And like, does this make you feel something? And I can tell you what, I live in Melbourne and I listened to this in the middle of the night when I was on a tram home with the sort of like slightly sick city lighting, like that slightly gross lighting on you. And it was just me on the tram. And this slaps in that situation, I'll be honest. It really gives you that feeling of like being very alone. It feels very intimate. And it also feels very urban. This feels like a song written by someone who grew up in one of the big cities of Europe, as you have that sort of like period of the 2010s where, you know, wages weren't increasing, everyone's struggling a bit. This speaks to that experience, I think. And so I think, yes, it's a ballad. Yes, it's in Dutch, but there's something universal here, which is an audience is going to go for, I think. Yeah, and I'd like to also, we haven't spoken about her very much. And I think Steen as an element of this package is a bit underrated. I've seen criticisms that she can be a little bit like flat and emotionless, perhaps like a Blanche from Belgium a couple of years ago. But again, I think that can be appealing to a certain audience. Like there's that sort of like disassociated cool girl vibe, which is very trendy aside from anything else. And so really all she has to do is just sort of sit there, deliver. And even if she's a little bit blank, that's almost in fashion at this point. So I think she's a really compelling performer. She really conveys it well. And so long as, you know, the staging lives up to it, which as I said, I think it will, I see no reason why this shouldn't do well with both sets of points. I think it's destined for a really good result. On that note, let's have a chat about how we think this is going to do. So Kyriakos, nail your colors to the mast for me. Do you think this is going to qualify?
I think she will qualify, and I think she has a nice spot in the running order as well. She's sandwiched between Bulgaria and Moldova. So I think she's going to stand out very nicely. So I see her in the grand final.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the grand final, I think I really do have to see the staging, because at the moment, I'm looking at this very broadly, but I see obviously definitely top 10 and maybe definitely top 20 and maybe a top 10 finish. Mm-hmm. But yeah, very broad there.
I do not see any like sane universe in which this does not qualify. There are a lot of female ballads this year, but I think this is, if not the best one, then in the top 2 or 3. And I think it is comfortably going to sail through in that sense. It's just so far ahead in terms of both pure songwriting, but also as an emotion and as a vibe. When we get to the final, I think this can do top 5. I genuinely think this is perhaps even a little underrated. I think it's going to appeal to a very broad audience, despite its sort of regional specificity in terms of language. And if they can nail the staging, if it gets a good draw, you probably don't want to something like this too early in the evening. But if it gets a good draw and it looks great on stage, top 5. Big call, but I'm willing to make it. Well, there you have it. We're both big fans of this one, and I think we both see big things for it. Perhaps me more than you, but I'm right and you're wrong, Kyriakos. Sorry.
That's fine.
Steen will be performing for the Netherlands in semi-final 1 in Turin, which takes place on the 10th of May or the 11th of May, if you're in the Southern Hemisphere like us. And you'll have to just wait and see how she does there. Hopefully, she does as well as we predict. Cheers, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.